And she had 3 daughters then. And finally, I was born, the 4th daughter. They didn't have any sons, and they must have been heartsick having another daughter. And I was brought into the world by a midwife. There was no doctors. And she brought me into the world on her own birthday. And she never ever forgot my birthday. She would always bring me a little gift. It was just scraps from her sewing that I could make dog clothes out. She always brought me something. And my father was one of the best-natured men I ever saw. He laughed over things and told jokes, and Mother was very straight-laced, precise, quiet, and Dad was always telling a joke. And if we'd want to do something, we'd say, "Can we do it, Papa?" And he'd smile, and we'd say, "Please, can I do it?" And he'd say, then we'd say, "Well, say yes or no," and he'd say yes or no. And finally he said if he knew he shouldn't say yes, why, he'd say, "Go ask your mother." Or if we'd go ask our mother, and she knew we shouldn't, she'd say no, and that was it. Never questioned again. But we could coax Dad all day long. If he thought it was all right, he'd say yes to it. And if he thought we shouldn't do it, he'd say, "Go ask your mother." And I can remember when we'd go, in the winter, we'd go up to Uncle Willard's, which was 8 miles, where the horse and buggy are with a sleigh. That was a long ride. And we had this old bobsleigh, and Dad would put a team of horses on it with sleigh bells on the harness. And I can now see how we sat in that old sleigh. Mother would put rocks in the oven, get them hot to put on our feet, and a quilt over our lap. And Melvin and Adrian would ride out on the runners and reach down and pick at snow and hit us in the face with snow. And Dad would to the horses to keep them going. And he'd say, "Well, I'll stop at this place and buy a whip." And he'd stop on the riverbank and go out and whittle off a stick to hit the horses with. And we'd jog along till we got to Uncle Willard's. It was always such a lot of fun there. He was full of fun, and Mother thought the world of him. He was her brother. And we had lots of good times. And in the summer, we'd go in our buggy. And you know, with a big family, we can't get very many buggies, so they did 2 buggies. A double-seated buggy and a single-seated buggy. That meant 3 horses. And we jogged along up to Uncle Willard's, 8 miles. And on the way, we passed the hot springs. And we'd go down there, and they'd go, everybody but me would go in swimming. I was such a coward, I never dared get in the water. And Dad would get in, and he would swim way out into hot springs where it was hot. He'd reach down and get hot sand and throw at us. And I would sit on the shore and keep my feet in the water and never get in. I was just scared to death of water. And then when we'd get out and get in the buggy to come home, it'd be night, dark, or we'd be home. And Eva and Laura and Edith were such good singers, and they harmonized, could sing. They sang on all the programs and everything. And Dad would sing with them, but he changed 2 keys about 3 or 4 times in one song. And I can remember the moon in the sky, clear blue sky and the moon. The clouds drifting along as we come out laying the bottom of the buggy and go to sleep as the girls would sing on the way home. Dad was always on programs. Every time they'd have a program, they'd always ask him to sing because he had a good voice, but he'd change pitches 2 or 3 times. But people would just clap and laugh, and he step dance, they called it. Now they call it tap dance, but he step danced. And they'd make him get up and dance. And he'd dance until he'd just be ready to drop. He'd sit down and they'd clap, and he'd dance some more, and they'd tell him to sing. And on his farewell, when he went on his mission, they had him do that on the program, sing and tap dance, and how they did stomp and clap. And he used to call for the dances, square dances. And he'd go all over the valley calling for the dances. He's very popular. And I was told by one of his cousins that there was never anything outside of a circus that could compare to him in athletics. He walked on his hands. He could wrestle. There wasn't anybody that he wouldn't wrestle. And I have been told by several people that there was never anything out of the circus that could compare with him. Race, didn't matter what it was, athletic, he could do it until he had that accident and lost his hand. And that slowed him down. How much?
Oh, you just tell everyone?
Well, I could go on all day talking about my dad, because he was quite a character. I remember when James was a baby, well, he's about 2 years old. I think Edith was a baby and James was about 3 years old. And Dad was trying to teach him to tap dance. And Alden B was there. And Alden B tried so hard and he couldn't get his feet off the floor. And James just diddled and danced all over the room. And Dad would just laugh into hysterics at James dancing. He was quite a character. He sure loved his family. He loved his grandkids. I remember when I was just a child and Mother wanted to love music so well. She was a very good singer, had a beautiful voice, and she wanted so much to have music in the family. And they weren't very well to do. They farmed. He sold a cow to buy a little organ, and it wasn't the organs we have nowadays. You had to pump it by foot. He bought this organ, and Eva started taking lessons. I don't know how old she was. Maybe I was 5 years old. I think I was, because Adrian was just a little girl. And Eva started to take lessons, and she was 7 years older than I was. She would be 12 years old. And she did real well. She learned fast. But Laura, the next one, she had a real talent. And Eva would practice, and she had to work. She'd practice, and when she'd get up and leave the organ, Laura would go sit down and play what she could play. Eva would cry. She'd say, "I never get a piece learned until Laura's playing it." She had such talent. And she was a good singer. She sang the low alto, and Eva sang the soprano, and Eva sang the in between, harmonized. Well, I loved that organ, and every time I'd get a chance, I'd go over and I'd try to play it. So Eva started giving me lessons. She taught me the keyboard, and she taught me the lines and spaces. And she just had the songbook is about all the music we had, all the music that we had. She had to go away to school because there was no high school there, and she went away to my aunt's in Farmington, Smithfield, to go to school. And I had learned the lines and spaces, and I'd sit there with one finger and try to pick out the hymns. Well, the superintendent of the Sunday school said to my father, "Can Irene play the organ?" And Dad said, "Yes." He'd see me up there with the organ. Every time he'd come in the house, that's where I was. No matter what the wrong would do, they had to pull me away from there. He said, "Yes." So he came home and he said, "Brother, Mom said for you to come and play for Sunday school next Sunday." And I started to cry. I said, "Papa, you know I can't do that." He said, "You can if you think you can." Well, I wanted to do it, but I didn't see how I could. But the lady who was a chorister, she lived in the farm, journeying our farm, And she came over, and she would sing and beat the time, and I learned to play vocal visual. There's no sharps or flats, and I learned to play vocal visual. And I went to Sunday school, and I played this song.
Contour music?
And when Sunday school was over, I couldn't get up and walk. Edith had to help me out of the building. I was so exhausted, but I was so thrilled I did it. And Sister, oh, I can't think of her name now. Anyway, she said, we'll learn a new one next week. And we used the same one we used last week, but we would learn a new one. So we did. And each week she'd come and help me, and I would learn a new. Now, I'm sure I didn't play them very good. I'm sure I did a lot of stumbling. But I knew the songs, so, and I didn't know the value of the notes, but I knew the songs, so I played the right.
Yeah.
Well, when Eva came home, she was amazed. She said to Mother, I can't understand it. She said, Irene's playing all those hymns, and I tell her where to play sharps and flats, kind of man. And she says she doesn't know the value of notes. She doesn't know the time signature or anything, and she's playing them all. So we moved to town about that time. And Dad had had another accident, and he had both arms broken and his ribs broken. He bought this place in town, and Mother started taking me orders in the sugar factory. And there was a man, his name was Joe Kirkland, and he was a chorister in the ward and a fine musician, played the violin. And he would take all the youngsters that would, and he'd have them get them instruments, didn't matter what instrument they wanted to get, and he would help them play it and organize the band. Well, he would call me up and he'd say, Irene, come on over tonight and let's practice my violin. Now, he didn't make me feel like he was correcting me. I was doing him a favor, I thought. I'd go over there and we would play for the hours. And he'd say, now let's play it this way. And he taught me the value of the notes and how to play correctly and to be an accompanist. Because that's what I was an accompanist. I've been in debt to Joe all my life because he helped me more than anybody. Well, Eva helped me a lot, of course. And about that time, Dad said, well, I think you ought to have a teacher. So he arranged for a man whose name was Fred Nye. He'd come give me lessons, and he gave me 7 lessons. And instead of starting me right back and making me play exercises and learn to finger correctly, he would bring his songs. He was a beautiful singer, had a beautiful voice. He would bring his songs, and I would play his songs. And we put in all that time practicing on songs that he would sing. And when he was called on to sing, he'd call up and say, I'll pick you up at such time, Irene. I'm going to sing out to Fielding, or I'm going to sing over Coningston, or I'm going to sing somewhere, you know, and I'll pick you up. We never had to practice. We'd already practiced. Of course, it was a good experience because I learned to be an accompanist. But I didn't get the background of fingering that I should have had so that I'd be a really accomplished player. And he said to me, Irene, you're a born accompanist. You'd never be a solo player. You're a born accompanist. Now I've got a thing to celebrate you. So I just figured I couldn't play solos.
Okay. Tell me about what your family circumstances were like when you were little.
We were very poor. In the first place, we lived on a dry farm, and we had to haul the water. And when Dad had this accident and lost his hand, he sold the ground that was above the canal and kept because they brought this canal through during this time, and it came right through our farm, dividing it. And part was irrigated, part was dry. And he sold the dry farm, and we built a home down on the irrigated farm. And Father got this job because of his crippled condition. He got this job as canal master, and he rode the canal every day from Collingston, which was 12 miles, up the canal to where we got the water out of the river up there, and see that the farmers' water was fine and everything. He made that was his job. And he had a cart with a horse, one horse that he rode in, and we had the buggy when we wanted to go. But we were a little better off then because he had this income. We weren't depending entirely on the crops. And he raised beets and hay, and we had a lot of cows. We were better off, but we were poor. At that time there wasn't any telephones, there wasn't any electric lights, and my job was to clean the lamps, chimneys every day, because they would get soft every night. My job was to clean the lamps. So that was our position as a family.
Tell me about some of the games you used to play as children.
Oh,
Family.
we played the run, sheep, run, and we played hide and seek. And my father put up hooks for a basket and got us a basketball. And from then on, it was nothing but basketball for me and for Melvin. We played that constantly all summer long. And then in the winter, skating was our fun. Or riding sleighs or skating. That was our most fun.
Tell me about some of the things you did, the holidays, what you kind of did on holidays.
Well,
Traditions.
I don't remember too much about the holidays. I remember on the 4th of July one year, there was quite a lot of Japanese families lived up in that valley farming, raising beets, and they put on a big celebration. And everything was free to the white man. And I remember that was the year that Melvin was, Alden was born. And I went down, walked down, which is a mile to town, and I walked down. Mother gave me a nickel to spend. And I walked down and I went and saw everything, and I come back and gave her the nickel. I had to spend it. I went back to
Okay, tell me about some of the medical. Was there any medical methods that you remember?
No, there wasn't until I was a grown girl. There's no doctors in that valley at all. And I remember once I had a bad sore throat. It was when the first doctor came in. His name was Rich. He's a relative to the Dr. Richardson Walker. This new doctor, and I had this bad sore throat. And Mother had him come out, and he looked at it, but I was anemic and bled awfully, and so he didn't dare take my tonsils out, thank goodness. That's my first introduction to a doctor. There was no medics until then.
What kind of work experiences did you have when you were younger?
Well, when Dad was on his mission, Melvin and I were janitors for the school. And we swept the school and cleaned the blackboards, and there was one of those pot-bellied stoves, and we had to clean the ashes out, of course, and keep it clean and fix the fires. In the evening we had to clean the schoolhouse, and then in the morning we had to go early and start the fire. And then then this summer, I got a job babysitting for a woman who lived about 3 miles from us, and I'd walk over to her place, and she had 3 little children, and she had me take care of those, help her with her children. And of course I had to wash the dishes, and if the work was all done, she couldn't see anything to do, she'd get some mending out and have me mend, and I was just a little girl too. Then I'd have to walk her back home.
What was the social life like? Did they have lots of things in your area?
Well, just the ward parties. That was the only thing there was the ward. And they would have, occasionally, in the primary, we had some parties in primary, but it would be just some special occasion. I don't remember us socializing an awful lot. Go sleigh riding in the winter, but I don't remember of us ever having really parties. I guess they had dances, but I don't remember much about them.
What kind of hobbies did you have when you were young?
Hobbies was riding horseback. If I hadn't had a horseback ride, when it came night time to go to bed, I couldn't go to bed till I did. I remember Dad saddling up a horse to let me go for a ride because I hadn't been on a horse all day. That was and then, as I say, basketball, and Melvin and I, we were pretty good at pitching the baskets. And in school, we played girls basketball and a girls team. But the coach gave us very mild rules, which was girls. And this morning I got on the school van, which was not a bus, horse-drawn, to go to school, and Mother said, "You come straight home from school today." I don't remember what the reason was, maybe didn't know then. But when I got to school, I found out that the East Garland girls were coming to play basketball, play our team. Well, for goodness sake, I couldn't go home. How could they play basketball without me? I was the forward. And our mother would understand. She didn't care. She knew that I had to play basketball, so I didn't go home. I stayed. And they didn't play rules like we played. They played boys' rules, and they were pretty rough. And they would scream, "Don't let her get the ball," because if I got the ball, I put it in. I had practiced so much that I actually just put it in. And they would scream, "Don't let her get it, don't let her get it." Well, this girl came up and tripped me and dislocated my knee. Well, there I was. I couldn't play. I just would have gone home. I couldn't play. And it kept swelling worse all the time. It was so painful. And the man had gone home, and I had a mile to walk. I was dragging on the leg by the time I got home. It was dark. And I got up to the door, and Mother was standing there waiting for me. And I said, "Don't say a word, Mama. I've been punished. I've been punished. Don't say anything." And she didn't. She didn't say a word. But I was out of school for a week. Of course, I never did get over that knee injury.
Oh, dear. Okay. What was your first job? I mean, I know the janitorial, but
When I grew up,
when your kids was older.
well, my first job when I grew up to be a young lady was working in the Rice department store in the music department. I went there and asked for a job, and it was in November, just before Armistice Day. Zan and I, this is a long story, you don't want to hear all this. But anyway, I went and inquired for the job, and he showed me a list, a long list of names ahead of me. He said it doesn't look like there's any hopes. But he took my name and address, and I was staying with Melvin and his wife. And we went home, and when I got home, the telephone rang, and he said for me to be to work the next morning. So I went to work the next morning, and they were selling aluminum. It was an aluminum sale. And it was just for this Saturday. But when the day was over, the boss came to me and said, "Will you come to work Monday morning?" So I went to work Monday morning, and that was my first job. And then the girl who had the music department was going to quit. He asked me to take it because he'd seen me go over there, fool around with her in the music department. So, and it was in this same, it was in the basement. There was a shoe department and this dishes and aluminum and everything of that sort. And the music department was all one floor. He asked me to take over. And it really frightened me because, you know, people would come in and they'd say, "I want to play such and such place, will you play it for me?" Maybe I had never seen the piece before. But it was a challenge, and I was thrilled to do it. And that was my job. Put me down over the music.
Tell me about your dating and courtship with Grandpa.
Well, that's a long story too. Because when we came there to Ogden, I think I've told you this before, we came with Edith and Bill Coombs. Bill was being sent to California, and he said if Zina and I would go with him, but he would sponsor us to a job. He'd pay our way there until we could get a job, so that Edith wouldn't have to go alone. She just didn't want to go. And Zina was all for going, but I had a feeling like I had to be an Ogden, and I said, "No, I won't go." Zina started crying. She said, "You want to spoil everything I want to do." And I said, "If you want to go, you go ahead and go. But I'm staying here." I had such a feeling about that place that I had to be there. So they went on the next day without us, and Zina stayed. And that was when I went and got my job. And the man who one of the girls that worked there in the shoe department, she told the superintendent of the Sunday school, which is in an entirely different ward from where we were living, about us, and he came down and asked Zina to be chorister and me to be the organist in Sunday school. And we weren't living in that ward, but he said, "Well, if they make us trouble about you not being the ward, I'll bring you up and it lives in my home." So we went up and took the jobs, and Zina, of course, was a foreign chorister. And she made quite a hit. And they were having a party, Sunday school officers and teachers. So we went to the party. And there was a young man there, and he had his girlfriend, but he kept flirting with me. And I just thought it was, and the next week, the choir practice, and they invited us to come to choir practice, and of course Zina was a good singer. And we went to choir practice, and this young man was there. And he walked us home, which was about 2 miles. Boy, that was a long ways out to Edith and Bill's. They lived way out south end of town. And this is the middle of town, up on the hill. So, when we got home, Zina went on in. And I thought, what in the world did she do that for? Because Zina, he was after, not me, because I'd always took the back seat for Zina all my life. But when we got in, I said to Zina, "What did you do that for?" And she said, "Well, goodness, I knew who he was after. He wasn't after me." Well, I hadn't discovered that. But he made a date with me that night, and it wasn't very long till we were engaged.
How old were you, Grandma? And how old was he?
Let's Oh boy, that's a long time ago. I was in my 20s, how far? Well, 22, so probably 23 before. Oh, I'd had a lot of boys friends before then, but never anything serious.
Tell me about your children.
Well, my children are real special. We lost our first baby, and then the next baby was James. And he was such a full of fun, sweet little kid. And then Simon, and then he had came along. And she was such a little lady. And she learned to walk so quick. She was 9 months old, she started walking. She's 10 months old, she was potty trained. James could talk, but he didn't learn to walk as young as Simon did. When he got where he could walk, he thought he was really pretty smart. He didn't learn to walk really young. So then we went 4 years, 2 years, but 4 years when John was born. And John was very special too. They're all very special. Very talented, all 3 of them.
Okay. Let's see. Can you tell me a little bit of the routine of your family life when you were married and stuff?
Well, when we were first married, we had a regular little apartment, and we wanted to buy a place. We was expecting a baby, and we wanted to have a home. So Grandpa got a chance to buy a place on 26th Street, just up from Washington Boulevard. And it was a little old house, but it was cheap enough that we could afford it. And we bought it. We lived there until when John was coming. And I felt like I had to have more room because it was just a bunch of room. So we rented a place on Patterson, which was on the street where Grandma Rice lived with Grandma Robertson. And we lived there until after John was born. And then Grandpa bought a place out on 17th with the old Betty Rich home. And we fixed that up and moved in there and lived there until we came to Idaho. No. We did live there in Idaho. We lived there. We built our new home. We've just been in our new home just a year or two when we sold it. So Grandpa was a watchmaker, and he worked long, hard hours. Sometimes he worked until nearly midnight because his boss was poor health. He had to do like his old office and he was a watchmaker. He had to do the watch work after hours because he had to take care of the business. Then after hours he would repair watches.
Tell me about how the effect of the Depression was while you were growing up.
Well, when we were growing up, some of the children were little. The Depression hit us so hard. And Grandpa was cutting his wages about 50%. But we managed. We were always very careful over the way we spent money. We couldn't pay cash, we went without. We bought the things we needed, but somehow we always managed to meet our expenses. We didn't have a lot. We managed.
And how did the World Wars affect? Do you remember any?
Well,
Anything?
even the Second World War, that was when James was just a teenager and they were coming up here. James was went in the Navy. In fact, it was that much. Grandpa had been in the Army, but was just, he never went any, he never was sent out away. He was just in a training.
Do you remember any serious accidents or things that just really close call in the family?
In our immediate family, when John was a baby, Melvin had left Logan to go back to California, and he told Mother that she could have the rug off their living room. And she came over and she said, "Dewey, will you take me out to Logan to get that rug next Sunday?" He didn't want to do that. He never liked to go off on Sunday. He wanted to be in church on Sunday. But he hated his mother-in-law, he hated to say no. And I guess he kind of fenced around about it. And on a Sunday morning, he always went down every Sunday morning and wound his watches at the shop. It had to be wound every day, and so he'd go down early in the morning and wind those watches. And he went down this Sunday morning, and that would he'd go over, see if Mother had arranged for Bill or somebody else to take him. You know, then she thought he'd come to get her. She just jumped up and put her coat on, and she was ready to go. And so he didn't say anything. We just got in the car, and they came out to our place. And John was sick, and I was walking the floor with him. And they came in. I was quite surprised. And the car was an open car. It wasn't like you have now. It was kind of an open car. You had to put shields up on it. And so he said, "We better take a quilt to put on your mother's lap." So I went down a quilt, and her mother saw it was quite a nice quilt. She said, "Oh, don't send that one. Get me another one." So I got one that they use when they go camping or something like that. And they left, and I cried all day long. Long in the afternoon, about 5 o'clock, we didn't have a telephone at that time, and my neighbor came over, and she said that Dewey had called from Brigham City and said he'd get in touch with Phil, that he'd had an accident and he'd come up and get them. And I said, I was afraid somebody had been killed, because I had been so upset all day about them going. I remember when they walked out the door, Mother was tall, well-built. She had the prettiest ankles and legs. And I remember noticing her ankles, the pretty ankles she had. And I cried all day. So when Bill went up and got Dewey, like a guy, Mother was in the hospital, and I found out that when we went up through the canyon, as we went to go down, it was real slick, and there'd been snow. And Grandpa tried to put on the brakes, to slow it down, and it did. It went in a spin. And they started to roll. It was a big canyon, the high road down into a big canyon. And they started to roll down this canyon, and they turned clear over and stopped on their wheels, on all 4 wheels, going on down. And why they didn't go, how they could have helped them going down, I don't know, but they didn't. And he threw him out of the car. And when he got up, Mother was sitting there in the seat, and he thought, well, thank goodness nobody was hurt. He came up and he discovered she was unconscious. And that they had cut her face just kind of close like this and off of her lip. And she was bleeding terribly. And he, of course, this quilt that she had over her lap, that she would take that knife from this quilt. The whole quilt was covered with blood. And Louis got out in the road and tried to stop people, but nobody dared stop, because they stopped, they fell out of control too. And several cars before somebody stopped to take them back to Brigham City to turn the hospital, because she bleeding as when she bleeded to it. And she was unconscious all this time. But she didn't die. We got her to the hospital and sold her face out. I often thought about how upset I was that day and how upset he was about going, and they never did get to Logan and get the rug. He'd have done as he felt like. See, he wouldn't have done in the first place, but he was just trying to be helpful.
Okay, tell me about your ride in the first car.
My ride in the first car? Well, they were open cars too, and the honk was on the outside, a rubber ball that you'd squeeze to make the honk honk. My girlfriend and I, we walking down this, we lived out in the country, we were walking down this lane, we walked down a section to see, then turn and go to the other section, and we were going to walk down just to walk. It was a Sunday afternoon, we were going to go to town. And this car came along, and he was the superintendent of the sugar factory. His name was Mosiah Evans. And he was sad to good-natured fellow, and he'd always say, good morning, good morning, good morning, or good evening, good evening, good evening, all six hours. And he stopped his car and he said, good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, girls. Would you like a ride? Oh, would we like a ride? We climbed in there in a hurry. And we was riding along, and we come up over a ditch. And the road was built up to see over this ditch. It seemed like awfully high, but it would, to me, no, it wouldn't seem high. But as we went up over that ditch, my stomach went right up into my throat. Oh, boy. And I guess he must have been going 10 miles an hour, but it seemed to me like we were going like the wind. That was my first ride. And he took us to town and around and let us out.
Can I have you video testimony?
Well, I've always said this would be hard to do. I always cry.
Easy to cry.
I think I got my first testimony when my dad was on his mission. Melvin was healed. And I saw the power of the priesthood. I knew it was true. The war. No. Okay.